Hi guys! Welcome back to my channel. And today I decided to do another ranking video. But this time we're not going to be focusing on extreme horror movies. We're going to be talking about more mainstream horror movies. So, in my first video I explained my tiers, but I also added one. So at the top we have masterpiece, near perfect, 10 out of 10 would watch again. And then the section that I added was, it was a movie. So this section is going to be, it was a movie. It wasn't something that I would consider myself to watch again, but I also didn't hate it. It wasn't not my cup of tea. So it's just kind of like a little section. We have Not My Cup of Tea, Garbanzo Beans, What Even Happened, and then I moved Government Watch List to be above Prison, and Never Seen. So, without further ado, let's jump right into it. So, let's start with the OG, Paranormal Activity 1. So, this movie follows Micah and his girlfriend, Katie. And all of the Paranormal Activity movies are found footage, which is a plus in my eyes because I love anything found footage, even the trash ones. So, Micah comes home with this big new fancy camera, and we learn that his girlfriend Katie is kind of being haunted. She explains to him that she feels as if the entity that she saw when she was younger has now followed her into her adult years, and that recently she's been getting these feelings, been hearing noises, been hearing her name being called. And Micah kind of plays it off as a joke. So instead of comforting his obviously terrified girlfriend, Micah decides to be a man and set up a camera. And not only set up a camera, but antagonize the freak out of this entity. As the weeks go by, or as the days go by, the first couple of days nothing really happens. We see Micah and Katie sleeping peacefully through the night, and then we start to see small things, hear noises, the door creaks. But as we slowly go through the days and we see Katie becoming more terrified and Micah becoming more pissed off, the entity starts to get a little more aggressive. And by aggressive, I mean domestic abuse case, okay? So this entity starts to pull Katie out of the bed, starts to drag her across the floor, literally starts to possess Katie herself. And during these first couple of possessions, the only thing that we see is Katie standing in front of the bed watching Micah sleep. A couple of times she may go downstairs, and then when Katie wakes up, she has no recollection of what happened. This one is also one of the only ones that they'll go back and watch the film, watch what's happening. Katie is rightfully so scared out of her freaking mind. Micah's being stupid, just dumb. I hated Micah. I hated him so much because why are you being so stupid? But by the end of the movie, Micah gets what's coming to him, and Katie is now possessed. Out of the whole franchise, Paranormal Activity 1 is my favorite. So I'm going to put it in near perfect. So immediately following Paranormal Activity 1, we have Paranormal Activity 2. This one acts sort of like a prequel, sequel-ish, and we meet one more family member. So Paranormal Activity 2 follows Katie's sister, Christy, and her family in their very painfully suburban home. After a supposed burglary, Dan, her husband, decides to install security cameras all over the house, which is great for us, but very, very, very terrible for them. What starts off as very small disturbances quickly escalates into violent poltergeist activity. And what's scary about these movies is that they take normal everyday spaces and turn them into nightmare fuel. Kitchens, nurseries, hallways. And also in this one, we see that the entity is targeting the baby, their newborn child. And because of this, we also get a little deeper into the lore and learn that the entity is passed down through the family for generations and mainly targets firstborn sons. But as Christy becomes more vulnerable, the demon slowly transfers itself to Katie, and this sets up what we get in the first movie. So I liked this one. I did not like it as much as the first one. So I'm going to put it in 10 out of 10 would watch again. So Paranormal Activity 3 goes way back to the very beginning, which predates both the first and second movies. So this one takes us back to the 80s and shows us where everything actually started. And we see Katie and Christy now as children. And we also learn in this one the name Toby. So keep that name in mind for the next movies. And Toby is their imaginary friend who turns out to not be that imaginary. So this one uses home footage set up by their mom's boyfriend. And this movie includes the iconic oscillating fan camera. At first, everything feels kind of playful. Noises, objects moving, weird shadows. And then it becomes clear that Toby is forming a bond with Christy. We learn through the possession, through everything that's happening in the house, that their grandmother is actually a part of a cult that worships a demon who's in charge of exchanging power and protection. And this makes the family's problems passed down through generations. And let me just say, why aren't these parents, these guardians of these two small kids, not watching the footage back? In the girls' room specifically, if I saw my kid talking into a closet in the middle of the night, getting dragged across the floor, doing a whole Simone Biles routine on the edge of the border to the stairs and then jumping down, the girls are terrified. They're literally scared to death. And the parents aren't doing the bare minimum as watching the security cameras that they set up. But I liked the third one a lot more than I liked the second one. So I'm going to put it up here with the first one in near perfect. Okay, so Paranormal Activity 4. I know that Paranormal Activity 4 kind of gets some hate, but I liked this one. It was pretty cool. It gave us a different take. So in Paranormal Activity 4, we jump forward a couple of years and we're now with a completely different family. In this one, we follow a teenage girl named Alex and her family and her stinking cute little brother, Wyatt. They immediately make the horrible mistake of letting the creepiest freaking kid live with them from across the street, which we learn that these are the neighbors to Katie. And Katie has abducted this creepy kid, Robbie, to live with her. But after Katie's disappeared, Robbie is now by himself. So Robbie has been placed with Alex's family to stay until Katie returns. But while Robbie is staying in the house, strange things start to happen. Also in this one, they give us a lot of modern technology. So we get our feedback through webcams from laptops. We get images from Xbox Connect and also security cameras. And I really feel bad for the daughter, Alex. She's trying her hardest to find out what's actually going on. She seems to be the only one that sees something weird. Her little brother's walking around with demonic symbols on him that Robbie's drawn. Robbie's just being freaking creepy, and I don't know how the parents dealt with it. But towards the end of the movie, her whole family just gets murked. Katie returns, and we learn that Robbie is actually a part of the cult from the last one, which also connects us back to Toby. And we also hear this name again mentioned by Alex's little brother, Wyatt. The entity is also a little more aggressive in this one. I like this one though. So I'm gonna put it in 10 out of 10 would watch again. So now we jump again a few years from the last Paranormal Activity in the marked ones. So this one we follow a teenage boy named Jesse, and we've completely shifted from the suburbs to the city kind of streets. And Jesse's possession starts after he breaks into his neighbor's house and he's bitten by something. And when I said that the entity was aggressive in 4, take that, multiply it times 10, and we get the entity in the marked ones. So we start to see that Jesse gains these superhuman strengths, and he's doing like amazing inhumane things. He's also starting to exhibit very aggressive behavior. And it's eventually revealed that he's been marked as part of the same demonic cult connected to Toby. This one leans a lot into body horror, into dark humor, and it's a lot more fast-paced in energy, and it makes it feel a little different from the earlier entries. But the real payoff comes when the movie ties back into the original Paranormal Activity, looping the timelines and showing Jesse crossing paths with Katie during the events of the end of the first movie. And this part kind of shocked me because I was not expecting this at all. It's giving when we found out that Final Destination 5 was actually before Final Destination 1 with the plane scene at the very end. So because of that scene alone, this movie was good. I judged it a lot before I watched it, but I'm going to put it in 10 out of 10 when watch again. Okay, what has to be the worst entry out of them all? The ghost dimension. So first off, honey, this movie is chaotic. We've got glowing walls, weird camera POVs, tiny children who are apparently better at sensing demons than adults. But let's talk about the premise. Our family moves into a new house, of course, and discovers a hidden camera that they can see ghosts. Yes, a camera that can see the dead. Girl, I already don't trust technology, and now it's showing me the afterlife. Hard pass. This movie leans heavily into the 3D and special effects. And I saw this one in theaters, and we had the 3D glasses and whatnot, thinking that it would add to the scare factor. Girl, my best friend was snoring during this movie. And the children in this one, of course, they're the ones to notice the demon first, because apparently kids are the only ones who can see evil. Meanwhile, the adults are fumbling around like, maybe we should, I don't know, leave? Are you questioning the safety of your children, or do you just not like them? I don't know. Then there's this big reveal, the ghost dimension, which is exactly what it sounds like. Everything glows, everyone screams. It's chaotic, confusing, very visually overstimulating. This is also the movie that we get to see Toby, like actually see him. And throughout the first movies, I was always thinking that Toby was a child. Girl, Toby is a grown man. I did not like this movie. I did not like this movie. I was very upset when I left the theaters because we got these. Okay, it came from the same franchise. So I'm gonna put this movie in garbanzo beans. Next, we have Saw. And Saw is one of those films that made me really start getting into horror movies. So with the first one, we are dropped into this gross, dingy, dirty bathroom with two men chained to either sides of a room with a corpse in between them. They are given tapes, and after listening to the tapes, we hear them being read rules by none other than our clown-faced puppet, Jigsaw. And they're given the rule to survive, but they have to play the game. This one is a lot less chaotic than the Saw movies to follow. We mainly take place in the bathroom going over how these men are going to survive or how they're going to escape. We also then get flashbacks seeing how Jigsaw chooses his victims. And he chooses his victims based on who he believes wastes their lives. And the traps that he sets are gruesome, but they're also very connected to why he thinks the person is wasting their lives. But the thing about Saw is it's psychological. And I am a psychological girly. I love a good psychological thriller. I love movies that I have to watch more than once to figure out what the freak is going on. Like, you're watching these people make terrible choices, but also wondering, who made this setup and do I want to meet them? But by the end of this movie, you're left kind of gagged. Like, you're tricked along with the men in the room. The corpse in the middle of the room, not dead. It's John Kramer himself. He had a front row seat to all of the madness that he caused. So, because it's the OG, I'm gonna put it in 10 out of 10 would watch again. Jigsaw. So, first off, Jigsaw picks up years after the OG Saw movies. The premise is classic, you know, people wake up in traps, have to make impossible choices, and somehow survive if they're lucky. And then there's a big reveal, you know, the twist. Because of course, Jigsaw is always thinking 10 steps ahead, leaving clues, and making sure that you are just as confused as the people in the room. But the traps in this movie, they're brutal, intensive, and low-key creative if you can ignore the moral implications. But here's the fun part about this. The twists are actually clever. You think you know who's alive, who's behind it, and what's happening, and then bam, plot twist. Everything comes together like a puzzle box, you know, like a jigsaw. So I'm gonna put Jigsaw in 10 out of 10 would watch again. All right, Sinister. And I'm gonna say I really enjoyed Sinister. I enjoyed both the first and second ones, but more so the first one. In the first Sinister, we follow a family moving into a new house. And the main character is an author, and they've moved into a new house because they just moved out of a house where a murder was committed. And the wife mentions, oh, I hope this isn't, we're not moving into a house where crimes were committed. And the husband's like, oh, no, nothing to worry about. That happened down the street. So after they have moved into the house and been creeped out by absolutely everything, our crime writer, Mr. Ellison, strolls up into the attic. And this is where he finds some Super 8 films. And after he finds these films, he decides to see what's on them. But what he finds are tapes, footage showing families being murdered. And it's not just any kind of murder. It's ritualistic, it's creepy, and it makes you question humanity and your own life choices. Like, I'm clutching my pearls watching the way that this man in the video is setting up deaths for everyone. And in these movies, children are not spared. And we find out the entity, the man, the demon in this video's name is Bagul. But the tension in this movie is chef's kiss perfection. You don't see a ton of gore, but the suspense builds so well. So I'm gonna put Sinister in near perfect. I absolutely loved this movie. Okay, the Belko experiment. I would not be in this situation. Okay, as soon as I pulled up to my office building to see men in suits with guns and tanks, I would turn around and I would go home. And I would be the coworker that survived, okay? I would be the sole survivor. So in the Belko experiment, we follow a group of office people, and they go in for their normal day of work until the whole building decides to go on a shutdown. And I'm talking about shutdown like metal plates over the windows, men with snipers surrounding the buildings, and then it turns into utter chaos. Over the microphone, we hear these rules being sent out that they have to kill one of their coworkers and able for the time to be extended. I believe they have to kill someone every hour, and then I think it goes down to every 30 minutes. Or if they decide not to kill anyone, someone's head is just going to explode. And they learn this really quickly. And they also learn who they can trust and who's actually just been wanting to do this for a long time. There's no way to tell who's next. If you don't kill someone, whose head is going to explode? Is it just going to be one person, or is it going to be 5? The whole office turns into a battleground of good versus bad versus evil. So I was actually rather entertained watching the Belko experiment. It was a pretty good movie. So I'm going to put it in 10 out of 10 would watch again. Girl, The Visit. So the first time I saw The Visit was in theaters when it came out. And this movie, I usually don't like horror comedies, but this movie was really funny, and it was also really freaking good because it kind of got me with some of the jump scares. So this movie follows 2 kids going to visit their grandparents that they have never met before. Their mother fell out with their grandparents, so she doesn't want to see them. She kind of just puts them on a train, sends them off. Like, girl, who freaking does that, first of all? So they're staying with their grandparents and all is well, other than the grandparents being a little weird. And by a little weird, I mean grandma walking butt naked around the house at night, grandpa hiding his used diapers in the barn, kind of weird. Can you get into the oven to clean it? Kind of weird, you know? And slowly we see that these grandparents might not be who we think they are. The kids usually FaceTime their mom on the computer, but somehow the camera's screwed. It was tampered with, so the mom isn't able to see where they are, who they're hanging out with, what they're doing. The daughter, she's wanting to do some kind of a documentary and see kind of what happened between the grandparents and her mother. And we find out a lot more than we bargained for. And then, of course, we have our comedic relief, the little brother whose aspiration is to be a rapper. And we love him. We love some good comedic relief. Come on, Slim Shady. So this movie, I'm gonna put it in 10 out of 10 would watch again. It was funny. It was cool. VHS 2. So the whole VHS franchise, they are a collection of anthology horror films. And most of them, if not all of them, are found footage. So this movie focuses on two private investigators named Larry and Aisha. And they're requested by the mother of a college student named Kyle to go investigate his recent disappearance. After they get to Kyle's house, they find several television broadcastings on white noise. They also find several VHS tapes and a laptop that contains footage of criminal gangs from the first film. And then there are also pictures on the wall of the old man from the first film as well. Aisha discovers the laptops and is still recording as Larry tells her to watch the tapes, planning to inspect the house while she does so. She rewinds the laptop recording and she watches Kyle discuss the newest addition to his VHS tape collection, then puts a tape into the VHR to watch it. And then from there, we just go downhill. We're shown different tapes. The first, we're shown a guy who's fitted with some kind of digital ocular implant, and he's not allowed, or he won't be able to turn the camera off in the implant because of some kind of company. And then we're also shown a film where this guy has the most awful bike ride of his life. And one of the last tapes is literally called Slumber Party Alien Abduction. I really enjoy the VHS franchise as an entirety. I really do enjoy anthology films. So with that being said, I'm gonna put it in 10 out of 10 would watch again. So I'm actually going to end this part here. Since this list is a lot longer than my extreme horror movies, this video would have been forever and it would have took me months to actually edit because, girl, editing takes 35 years. So this time I went over the first 12, and then in the next part I will go over the next 12. So with that being said, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.